Testing. All right, give a second here for everybody to get on. All right, this is Patrick Costas here. I wanted to do a live stream tonight about what I think is a really important matter that's not getting a lot of attention right now, mainly because of all the stuff in the media about Trump and all the leftist violence that's going on is kind of overshadowing this, but it's actually not a new problem. It's a problem that's been going on for 16 years now. And it looks like that our leadership in the government and everybody wants to keep this problem going, it looks like. And so I wanted to go over where we are right now and then get from you guys where you are with this whole Afghan war struggle. Do you want to stay? Do you think we should stay with it? Do you think we should keep propping up this government, or do you think that enough's enough? 16 years is long enough. If you'd like to write into the live chat, or if you'd like to leave any comments or something, I'd love to hear them. But I'd really like to know, are the American people by and large behind this or not? But let me go over where we are right now. So as of when I pulled these statistics, which is yesterday, we had 2,386 U.S. soldiers that have been killed in Afghanistan. About 20,048 have been wounded in action. You can add 7 to that because of the 7 that were wounded today. We've spent an estimated $685.6 billion we've spent in Afghanistan since 2001. U.S. airstrikes have killed between 2,600 and 3,400 people since January 1st, 2015. As of November 2016, the government the government of Afghanistan controls or influences 233 districts, or 63.6% of the population, and 57.1% of the area of Afghanistan. The Taliban, conversely, controls 174 districts, which is 36.5% of the population, and 42.9% of the area. So by and large, after 16 years into a counterinsurgency, we're almost at 50-50. ISIS has established itself in the southeastern Afghanistan and is actively recruiting new members. Today, 7 U.S. soldiers were wounded when an Afghani so-called comrade attacked them, fired an RPG at them at a base in North Afghanistan. The base this occurred at is one of the largest in the country and headquarters for the Afghan Army's 209th Corps. In April, the same base was breached by 10 Taliban militants who detonated explosives and shot at unarmed Afghan troops. An estimated 200 troops were killed. Less than a week ago, 3 U.S. soldiers were killed in eastern Afghanistan when their so-called comrade opened fire on them. These assaults are increasing in frequency, and what really instigated me wanting to do this video was a report I'm going to show you here that came out on Fox News. Let me pull this up for you. All right, General Jack Cain, 10,000 to 20,000 additional troops are needed in Afghanistan. General Jack Cain, former Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, called the United States' 16-year-long involvement in Afghanistan a disgrace and said some 10 to 20,000 additional troops were needed to win the war. Now, if you're thinking you've probably heard that before, it's because you have, because they've been saying that for a very, very long time. that if we would just add a few thousand more troops, that would be it, and we could totally change the situation there. And that's what they're advising, or General Jack Cain is advising anyway, that if we send 10 to 20,000. Now, you may remember at the beginning of the Obama administration, they had the same scenario where they said we needed roughly around the same number of troops. We need them immediately. Or Afghanistan's going to fall. Everything's for naught. Henny penny, the sky's falling. So he authorized 17,000, and basically since that time, I mean, Afghanistan. I was actually in the invasion, or the initial attack, or whatever you want to call it, on the Taliban in Afghanistan on 9/11. And when I deployed for that, if you would have told me that in 2017 we'd still be there and we'd still have the security issues and the control problems, I would have said you were nuts. I would have said there's no way, it's not possible. But unfortunately it is, and it is occurring, it is happening. And we're 16 years and counting in, and nearly 3,000 American lives later, and we're nowhere closer to securing that nation, or securing at least a political settlement that doesn't involve massive amounts of bloodshed on our side and theirs. So how long, and this is the ultimate question I have, how long are we as taxpayers, as the people that have to go out and fight these wars? Our kids have to fight these wars, and they come back horribly injured and wounded and all that. I mean, how much longer are we willing to keep this up? 2, 3 more generations? Because that's what it's becoming. There has been zero progress. I'm not making this up. There's been no progress whatsoever in Afghanistan. So I failed to see why 10 to 20,000 troops are all of a sudden going to change the calculus. We've tried this for 16 years. That's my position on this. Now, I want to make it very clear that the problems in Afghanistan have absolutely nothing to do with the U.S. troops. The U.S. troops have performed admirably, as have our allies in the region. They've all performed admirably, and they've performed in constant opposition, in contrast to the horrible political leadership that they're managed by. And that's why Afghanistan is the basket case it is. I mean, I don't want to go back through the whole history, but we all remember in 2001 we had the invasion, and then after Bush and all the rest of the neocons decided to target Iraq, and Afghanistan went on the back burner. Taliban was able to go back in and establish control, and middle, here we are. And one thing I really hate about this whole situation is we're being held hostage by Pakistan. Basically, Pakistan, I mean, the big complaint has always been that if we leave Afghanistan, what will happen to Pakistan? It'll destabilize Pakistan, and Pakistan has nuclear weapons. Oh, yeah, and that's true. They do have nuclear weapons. But the thing is, if we jack up and we start aggressively going after al-Qaeda, then Pakistan bitches that we're, destabilizing their country by being too aggressive and going after, and most of the high level, the Haqqani network and all these other terrorist groups all reside in Pakistan. So, anytime and obviously we've been doing drone strikes and things like that, but it hasn't been enough to end the insurgency. Obviously, it's just not doing it. It's whack-a-mole. But my point is that if we do more of that, Pakistan bitches that we're being too aggressive. That if we don't do enough, and then Pakistan start bitching that we're going to leave the region, like we did in the 90s after the Soviets left, and we just kind of dropped it. So we're kind of being held hostage by them. If we do too much, they say we're destabilizing. If we try to get out of there, they say we're destabilizing the region. So we're going to get bad press regardless. So I choose to get the bad press that doesn't involve more Americans dying. Is where I come down on it, because I just don't see it, unless we're going to stay there forever and keep this up, like I said, for 2 or 3 generations at least. I don't think we should be there. I don't think under the current political landscape of the U.S. government, it's possible to win any kind of war unless it's overnight. I don't think it's possible to do that, because can you imagine people like Maxine Waters and Schumer and the rest of the scumbags actually trying to be behind the war effort and not use it for political aggrandizement or as some way to criticize the Trump administration? There's just no way in hell. They'd all be using it like a political football, just like they did with the Iraq War, just like what happened in the Vietnam War. It's no different. That's all it is. And I just do not think under the current political landscape that we should undertake any kind of war if we can avoid it. And this is certainly a war and a struggle that we can avoid. So those are my thoughts on this. And I say that as somebody that fought in Iraq, and I know quite a bit about the military, and I know a lot about military history and political history, and I just don't see any way forward from this at this time. The more that we do for the Afghanis, the less they're willing to do for themselves. We've seen this song and dance before. It happened again. It happened before in Vietnam. It always kills me how quick, how little the American population seems to remember sometimes. But we've been through this routine before, and it ended very badly there, and it ended up hurting them just as, and us equally. And the same situation is going to play out here. Afghanistan has absolutely no history of being at peace, really. None. It's been in utter chaos and warfare since the British and the Russians played the great game there. To think that we were going to come in there with Girls Gone Wild and our democratic processes and change everything was very short-sighted. And the worst thing we did is let off on the security situation and allow this Taliban resurgence, if you will. But now there's so many different groups active there that makes the situation even more unattainable. You have the Haqqani network, you have ISIS active in that area now. And I just don't think that this is something we should sink any more money or any more blood into. But I want to know what you think out there. So please go ahead and comment below and let me know if you are for this. Do you think that we should increase the number of troops that we want in there, like the Pentagon is asking for, or do you think we should cut our losses and call 16 years good enough? Let me know what you think.